children are rehearsing. Imagine having the doors open all day, 6 days a week with folks coming and going. Imagine your children and your children's children having a local opportunity to engage in the arts and make lasting friendships while sharing their talents with others. Chardon's in a unique position at this point, and I know there are so many others that would like to be in that space. I walk down Main Street almost daily, and I see the signs in the windows that say shop local, buy local. I also see and have seen the locked doors at the end of the square with the exception of a handful of weekends. There's an opportunity for the city of Chardon to shop local, buy local. Here's a group of homegrown Geauga County folks who want to work with you to contribute to the growth of the city, the well-being of the community at large, the advancement of the arts, and to help transform the lives of all who participate. They know the space, they know the community, they know the customers because they were here behind the scenes working hard all along. They work hard and are willing to work harder to make this reality. So let Curtin 440 do what it does best: establish community, transform lives, contribute to the well-being of the arts in Geauga. Buy local, shop local, bring local home. Bring local Curtin 440 to Chardon. You won't regret it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, good timing, too.
I timed it at home. I'm a theater girl.
Good job. Okay, next, please. Go.
I got this. Time myself because I'm not quite as good at that. My name is Evan Graham. I live in Middlefield, but I work in Chardon, and I've been involved in the theater here for more than a decade, so that's what I bring to it. And obviously, yes, I'm here to talk about the theater, Chardon Theater, and Curtin 440 specifically as a potential occupant of that space. I could sing their praises all day long. I don't need to, fortunately, because Caroline did a very good job of that. Instead, I want to address a more financial aspect of it, because I know at the end of the day, that's kind of what all this kind of comes down to, whether we want it to or not. I know you're all doing all kinds of number crunching when it comes to deciding what to do with that building in terms of cost of operation, cost of renovation, and what it can potentially bring in. And I wanted to elaborate in a way that only somebody who's really been thoroughly involved in the theater can, on how it stimulates business around itself, the trickle-out effect of having an active theater in your community. In the course of a production, from auditions to closing night, it's usually between 2 to 3 months, and you'll have potentially as many as a couple of dozen people in the cast and crew combined. And every day that they're there, they are traveling to the square, they're traveling to Chardon, they're buying food at local restaurants, they're shopping at local stores, they're buying a truly horrifying amount of coffee from local coffee shops every day. It would terrify you. And this happens every day of that entire process from start to finish. Children come and their parents come and do the same thing. Parents come and bring their children and do the same thing. People bring their friends. The entire production has an aurora around it of different people from all different areas in Chardon, outside of Geauga County even, all coming into this place, stimulating local businesses. And this continues all through the end of the process. And how many plays would you say you do on average at a time, Angela? 5, at least. And I know sometimes it's more than that. So think of that. The trickle-down effect of all these people involved in each production multiplied by 5 or more through a duration of time, stimulating the local economy. And with a local theater group like Curtin 440, this happens on and on and on. It stimulates a relationship with the community where people come in from all over the place. They stay here. They spend money in Chardon. They benefit everybody here at the same time. And on top of all of that, think of what it does to the artistic community, to the local economy on every single level, the heart of the community as a whole. Just think as you make your decisions about how to use that space, about how it affects every other business that you're also in custody of. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan.
There's something about me. I'm Dave Cunningham. I am not a Chardon person. I work in Solon. I've been an operations manager for a major wholesaler for Well, I've been there 38 years. I've been the operations manager for about 15. I know people who work hard, and I had an opportunity to start observing this company, Curtain 440, before they had the name, about 2015, when they were still working in the theater, and my daughter wanted to get involved with theater. And what I want to speak to today is how people get drawn into this company. We live just outside of Willoughby, and it would be much easier for my daughter to go to Willoughby Fine Arts and become part of that organization. In fact, she's done shows for them as well. But she chooses to come here. And the reason she chooses to come here is because there's a sense of family here with the Hansons and the Maloros, who are the root, the nucleus, if you will, of Curtain 440. I've been in the theater. I help with some audio stuff, very little, but just a little bit. And I was in that theater many, many nights. And I can't prove that they ever went home, because when I went home, they were still there working. They put in a lot of hours. They have a lot of expertise, but the thing that's really important, I think, is that they know how to build a community of young actors, and they do a lot of workshops. I'm not exactly what they're called, but they are teaching students how to do acting. They live less than 5 minutes from the theater, right on Route 44 down here. And I got sucked in with them too, because I saw what was going on. And I think what happens when you've got this nucleus of people who really, really work hard, and they really do a good job, then that becomes attractive to the people that are on the periphery, and they come in and they get drawn in like a magnet. And they say, I want to be part of that. And I did. I mean, we live miles from here. And I got sucked in, and I said, yeah, this is something that I would like to be a part of. And I'm getting a little older, so I can't do exactly what I'd like to do for them, but I contribute where I can. But I think, there's an old English proverb that says, a house is not a home. Well, you've got the house right down the street. And I think Curtain 440 is your best shot of making it a home. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Also good timing, Dave. You were under the 3, so.
I'm Mark Maloro. You can probably guess who my daughter is. But I'm not here to sing her praises, because everyone else does that. I want to talk a little bit about some other people, and this is going to be brief, and you probably know who some of these people are, actually. I know some of you do. So in addition to the local community theater founder and owner, we could also think about a NASA engineer, a local neurologist, a local psychologist, a pastor, a pastoral assistant, a lawyer, a professional opera singer, a doula, a local firefighter and paramedic, a local clerk court, and a 3D specialist designer, multiple teachers, and so many more GLTG kids, along with Angela, who developed the skills and confidence and determination that they had to do these things through their theater involvement right here on Chardon Square. And we also have at least one registered nurse that I know of, but I've been around there for a long time. I don't remember, I wasn't able to track them all down. So I suspect there's more of those. A professional photographer, a Cleveland Metro Parks naturalist, a college missionary, a National History Museum osteologist. I had to look that one up. You can do that later. Several professional performers, several film professionals, some of them local, theatrical production professionals, local tradespersons, local advertising professionals, multiple business owners, many highly driven local students right now, many current local college students in a wide variety of fields, and so many more competent young adults who were taught or directed by Angela at the GLTG and/or Curtin 440. Curtin 440 is good for Chardon and for Geauga County. And you can take a look, if you want, tomorrow and through this weekend at Century Village, because we'll be performing. Or if you want to rent it out if you haven't decided. Angela will probably talk to you about that if you haven't decided quickly. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Anyone else?
I think I'm the last one. I am Kara Stone. I am actually a resident of Montville, but much like Evan, I work here in Chardon. I'm an uncertified nurse aide at Maplewood Senior Living. And I am here to talk on behalf of the college students of Curtin 440, and I actually have a copy. Oh, you're the closest. I have a copy of what I wrote for you guys. It includes some stuff that I struck for time if you want to read more in depth of what I'm saying. Okay. Hello, my name is Kara Stone. I use they, them pronouns, and I would like to speak on behalf of the college members of Curtin 440. I have compiled testimonials from my peers as well as my own experiences to present to you today. Now, in the honor of knowing long-winded speeches are often tedious, I will get right into it. I would like to start with some words from Riley Bachinga. She is attending Marietta College in majoring in musical theater and has been a part of 26 Curtin 440 shows. Riley also participated at the Geauga, it's a mouthful, the Geauga Lyric Theater Guild starting at the young age of 8 years old. She said, "Angela helped me discover something within myself that made me come alive. She taught me to act, which in turn brings out my best self, and now my passion to become my career path." Riley has experience in acting, stage managing, lighting, sound, and directing, which are all skills she needs for her career path that she has, thanks to Curtin 440. Peyton Chapman attends Lakeland Community College with myself. For her speech class, she chose to write about why she believes Curtin 440 can make Chardon a local show belt. A couple things she said are, Curtin 440 and Angela Maloro Hansen express such professionalism. And Angela taught me what a great director is. Logan Katach Willage taught me what a great music director is. Erica Lohan and Kelly Tappiger Fox taught me what great caring choreographers are. Not to mention great costuming work of Kelly Maloro and the beautiful set decoration built by all the aforementioned people and Randy Hansen. I know that quote is quite long, but I wanted to include its entirety because it shows the power of the stunning people behind Curtin 440. Next semester, Peyton is going to be a member of the Disney College program down in Florida, and I know from conversation that Curtin 440 is a large reason for why she chose to audition to be a part of that program. Regan Cole is a Chardon resident attending Lake Erie College and has been with Curtin 440 since the company's birth. She also grew up as a part of the Geauga Lyric Theater Guild. Regan said, "I believe it's important to have a company that puts high-quality productions and also teaches children the art of theater and how fun it can be." Regan has known Angela for 14 years and has nothing but good things to say. And now that brings my speech to me. I currently attend Lakeland and am planning on transferring to a 4-year school in January where I can major in arts management. Now, while I could mention how I found myself in Curtin 440 or the way Curtin 440 brought me into a community, I feel as though my peers have covered that. I could also put quotes from the letter to the editor I had published in the Maple Leaf, but I want to talk about some other points. I want to talk about how a company with a solid base being in a community helps the local business. When there is a regular company that puts on many shows in a year in a community, it will bring the performers, crew members, and most notably, audience into the local shops and restaurants.
Kara, I'm going to interrupt for a second. I'll give you a little more time, okay? But you're outside the 3, but
Okay, I have like half a paragraph left. I'm so sorry.
there you go. Do it.
And most notably audience into the local shops and restaurants. I cannot count the amount of times I have stopped at coffee corners before or after a show at Century Village or Berkshire High School. The amount of cast parties held at Manja Manja after closing nights, or the amount of cast parties held at Manja Manja closing nights. Where there is performance, there is an audience that is hungry, thirsty, or looking for more things to do. Chardon doesn't need different companies that will have to compete against each other in their theater. They need a solid growing community with an amazing reputation. So on behalf of the Corton 440 college students, hashtag make Chardon the show belt. Thank you.
Anyone else like to address council?
Yes. I'd like to say thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. All right, one more time. Anyone else? No? Okay, we'll move on to old business. Seems like a good transition to update on theater management. And first, let me say that we're not taking any action tonight, so if there was a preconceived notion that we're doing that, we're not. What I want to do is talk about 3 points, one of which is we're currently working on the management company that's still in Jaga Theater is still there through the end of the year, and we've been working diligently with them on them leaving and equipment issues and so on. So there's been a great amount of time spent between myself, Councilman Means, and Randy Sharp, and other members of city staff. Number 2 is we've completed our meetings with individuals and also with theater groups in the area. And I can say with great conviction that the theater community in Northeast Ohio is alive and well. And one thing that I'm encouraged by is the cooperation between the groups that are operating in different areas. Completely respect it, didn't know to what extent that was involved until we spoke with different groups and with different individuals, but that's very encouraging. The plan at this point is to once again get through this year, and then we're tentatively saying that we'll be making a recommendation to City Council in January of 2024. There's a whole lot of more data behind each one of those points, but that's the general direction that we've taken at this point. We thank you all for coming in. I know there's different groups here, and the respect that we have for all of your individual and collaborative efforts is outstanding. We really do think that you all do a good job. There are many points to consider, but for one thing that we agree on is that all the groups that have interest in operating out of Jaga Theater do a great job for the community. Okay? Heather or Randy, do you want to add anything to that?
I just wanted to add the one thing. I think we talked about the possibility of purchasing some items of equipment from Drive and with council, and that we would come back with a recommendation, and the recommendation is not to purchase anything at this point in time, just so council knew that.
Not from Thrive, but there was another purchase item there that we have.
The lights, yeah, we're still looking into those lights, but they're actually not Thrive's property.
Okay. Any questions from anybody on council relative to that update? We'll keep moving forward. And thanks again for everyone that came in attendance and spoke on behalf of your organization. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to new business. A, consider extending both option years for the trash contract with Waste Management. Steve, I'm throwing this to you, but I think Vince is going to come up and speak at some point as well. Or you? We'll give them a second to. Okay, yeah, sure.
Steve, and I told Vince before the meeting, jump in. I think you've all met Vince Crawford before from Waste Management.
Oh, that's why he's sitting.
As I said, Service Committee met in November to consider, at Steve's request, he brought forward the possibility of exercising the 2-year contract extension. Again, because we'd have to know if we're not going to do that, we need to know now so we could be in place. As you recall, 5 years ago, we entered into a bidding process for single waste hauler. Waste Management was the one successful. in that. In part of that contract was the option for 2 additional years. Staff did some research and recommended that we do that. Steve, I do have a question in your memo. You indicate in the second paragraph that the bag rates would remain the same and increase in year 6 and 7. That doesn't make sense.
They're remaining the same of what's in the contract. The current contract, so the way the contract was designed was it was for 5 years with 2 option years,
Yeah.
and there was preset prices for bag increase and for trash and recycling pickup. With, Randy and I had met with Vince prior to this meeting. We had negotiated down below what the maximum increase was for the trash. But because of, I think, the volatility of the bag program, the price of the bags, the increase in the bag price would remain the same as what was.
Now I
in the-
understand now, okay. Other options that went into Service Committee's recommendation is if we were to go back out to bid, it's very questionable whether the bag service would any longer be provided. Waste Management is basically eliminating that in other new contracts. Also, based on some information from other communities that have recently bid, this renewal rates look pretty good. If you'll recall, I was the lone dissenter on the Waste Management vote because I did not agree that we should mandate recycling cost. If you'll note in the numbers provided, we have 209 residents who do not use the recycling, but they are charged for that service. They choose not to use it. However, as I said at the Service Committee meeting, the option here is to renew what we have, not make changes to the contract. I put that out for a brain thought for a couple years away. I recommend that we go with the 2 years renewal, Debbie does. And we appreciate the fact that Waste Management was willing to reduce their renewal rates from what was maximum permitted in the contract. I think that pretty much sums up. Vince, did I miss anything?
I don't think you did. I just, for me, I would just like to say thank you. We definitely appreciate being the city service provider. I can't believe how quickly 5 years has gone by. And before you know it, 2 years is going to go by. So we look forward to continuing to provide the service to the city and keep the same good working relationship.
Steve, Debbie, did I miss something?
Just the one thing, when we did all this 5 years ago, I know one of the major driving points was kind of to stabilize the cost of trash. And some of you that were here then may or may not remember, but the prices that our residents were paying back then were between $22 and $25 a month, and that was just for trash service. So we're now going to be at 7 years out from that point, and there's still going to be $2 less than what the best rate was back then. So that's just something to keep in mind, that I don't know that there's any other utilities or things that people have bought or that they can say that they're paying that much less than they were 5 years ago, 7
I
years
would
ago.
also indicate that I have watched your employees who happen to pick up in my neighborhood, very conscientious, very aware if there happens to be trash that gets blown somewhere there, they jump out and get it. I've been impressed with what I've seen the individual people working. So I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, and I'll pass that on. And I will put a plug in for if you guys remember 5 years ago, the driver that I had come in and speak to council, Patrick Corrigan, who is a resident of Chardon, lives right over on Center Street. He is one of the, he services the city on Tuesday. And him, like all the rest of our guys, this is our home too, and they take great pride, and that's why that they're out there doing that type of service.
And I'd also mention that my concern about the recycling, Waste Management did bid it a couple different ways. So it wasn't a Waste Management thing, that was something that we as a group decided to do. So that's no reflection on Waste Management whatsoever. So, because you would have gone either way, whichever we
Correct.
chosen to go. So, That's what we're recommending we do.
Vince, I always appreciated your quick response to any inquiries that we've had, either from council or city staff, and we had one this last week, which you followed up quickly through Steve, and it was relative to one of your customers who lives here in Chardon, and she had called your customer service line. They were told that the city of Chardon subsidizes waste management.
Yeah.
And I know she was very vocal on the phone. She also spoke to Amy. So I just wanted to clarify that that's not the case. And maybe you should talk to your customer service people.
Well, I think as I explained to Steve, I think probably that communication piece may have been, as he spoke to, because you have a contract, because the city has a contract, people that live outside the city, they are paying $25 to $30 per month for just one service. And saying, yes, why is my rate so low? It's really because you have a contract with the city, not necessarily a subsidy from the city.
We understand that. And
Yeah.
She does now too. Like.
Yeah.
Question for Vince. We're one of your loyal bag customers, and
Yeah.
I would like to stay that way. But if that should not be the case, are you going to have one of the main objections was having a large tote that would hardly ever fill up? So would there be a smaller sized tote?
Yeah, and actually, that's actually one of the things we've just done on our own in this contract is we've had residents call in and say, hey, I'd like the recycling size for my trash. Maybe they're elderly or they don't produce enough, and that's not actually in the bid spec, but we've gone ahead and just said, yeah, we have those carts. There's no change in price, but we can offer you that smaller cart. So that's actually what we've been doing in these other communities where the contract no longer has a bag program, is that there is a smaller trash receptacle size to be offered.
Still like the bag, though.
Believe me, I understand it, and, for us, it really just comes down to, safety and efficiency and how that truck is designed to operate.
Are there any other questions for Dave or Steve or Vince?
Need a motion?
We do.
I'll make a motion that we extend the waste management contract to years 6 and 7.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Call the question.
Mrs. Chuha?
Yes.
Mr. Graw?
Yes.
Mr. Loco?
Yes?
Mr. Martin? Ms. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Thank you, Vince.
Well, thank you all very much. Have a wonderful Christmas and New Year's, and we'll see you soon. All right.
Christmas to you as well. Terrible. We'll move on to legislation. A, would anyone like this ordinance read in its entirety? Hearing none.
An ordinance amending Chapter 941 of the Codified Ordinances to amend the regulations of municipal cemeteries in the city.
Is there a motion to read this by title only for the second and third time?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Question? Call the question.
Mr. Graw?
Yes.
Mr. Loco?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Mrs. Chuha?
Yes.
Motion carries. Number and read it, please.
Ordinance number 3258. An ordinance amending Chapter 941 of the Codified Ordinances to amend the regulations of municipal cemeteries in the city. Ordinance number 3258. An ordinance amending Chapter 941 of the Codified Ordinances to amend the regulations of municipal cemeteries in the city.
Is there a motion for the adoption of ordinance number 3258?
So move. Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Where's this going?
Okay.
Dave?
As I said in my memo, the Service Committee also looked at the cemetery rules and regulations and considered a number of things. We're basically around two areas. Number one is items we thought needed to be adjusted in the cemetery regulations pertaining to decorations of the graves, to help with the maintenance the appearance of the cemetery, that type of thing. Second was the request we had to allow cremains or ashes to be interred above ground in a monument or a headstone. So this thing all came together as one, and you have before you, and I am not going to go through everything, trust me, that we're recommending, right, Amy? But basically, as far as decorations and the maintenance, you know, we want to be respectful of the decorations that are left at the cemetery. We understand all that. At the same time, though, we do have to maintain the cemetery, and our workers, it's a very difficult job. So we're trying to balance both needs at the same time. So we've made some changes. For example, we want to limit the number of decorations per grave to 2. No glass objects can be left. So there was a number of changes in that way. Again, and then when we went to the cremains, we've decided to allow up to 5 cremains in any one grave, or 1 full burial and up to 4 cremains can be in one grave. The maximum of 4 above ground. Okay, do I have that straight? I know it's a little confusing,
Yes.
but this does allow for the internment of cremains above ground in a marker, which currently is not
Addressed.
It's not provided for in the regulations, even though we do know that some do exist. So we're just trying to address that. So that's what does that. And the rest of the stuff is really for a maintenance type thing. However, I would call your attention under 941.02I. We talk about shepherd staffs, and that if they're not unused for more, it says 30 days, that should say 60 days. Okay? We're finding that a number of the staffs have been installed and are never decorated, and I think we would like to be able to address that. So,
So Dave, so if somebody had put one in and then, you know, it's 70 days, the staff just takes it down and then they throw it out, they save it, what do you do?
what I would like them to do is to take it down, mark it or label it, and then put it behind the building down there, not dispose of it. For if that family comes back, they can retrieve it and continue to use it. It does not have to be stored inside the building. They're meant to be outdoors. And we have that area behind the building. So that's, Randy and I've talked about this.
Behind the garage.
Behind the garage
Not
down
the
in the
Mont Blanc.
cemetery, yeah. That's how I would see this going. And again, Leroy and the group are very conscientious, and they understand people's choices and how they like to decorate things, but we have to also make it so it's not a very, very impossible job to maintain the cemetery.
Dave, under item O in that same section, it's now been changed that applicants have to have a permanent marker on the grave within 1 year.
They've always, yeah, I was going to get to that too.
Okay.
They've always been required to do that.
Something, but not within 1 year.
It was never stipulated when, so we thought we ought to put a time limit on that. Now, let's be honest here, folks. If someone does not put a marker there, you're not going to force it in. I mean, how would you do that?
Victim?
Yeah, right.
Really?
But
Holidays.
the point, though, is is not to allow temporary or homemade temporary markers and/or, and I'll get to this, I'll get to it right now. We're also contacting a handful, I'm saying a half dozen or so, where they're handmade, or they're temporary markers and/or they're decorating graves where there are no markers. And we'd like to send a letter, and Randy wrote a very nice letter, by the way, that gives them a year to put in a permanent marker, and if that does not occur, like the rules indicate you should, then we're not going to allow temporary markers to put in or to decorate graves if there are no markers there. But we're going to give a year notice for that to occur.
Well, they would then be, after the year, they'd be in violation, and then technically, you could start penalizing them.
Technically, but
Okay, I'm just,
yeah, I don't see that. Personally, I don't see that happening because
okay.
personal opinion.
So
I
they'd
think-
have to have a foundation done by
Foundation.
the city and then order a marker. So that's not up to them.
Now, if it happens to be a veteran, they can get a veteran's marker at no
Won't
cost.
cost anything.
Yeah.
Outside of discussion of it tonight and media helping us out and making the change in the codified ordinance, how else are we communicating this to the public? Because there's like 15 little items on there. Some would take a higher priority, but do we, when someone comes to do a booking of a space, do we hand them everything that is discussed here so that they understand? Also, are the area funeral homes provided with any of this data so that they can grasp whatever changes that they may not understand? How do we do that?
I'm not sure any of these would be pertinent for the funeral home at the time. But the plan is to post signs at the entryways to the cemetery, so as people are coming in, there'll be something that says, new regulations take effect, and then we're going to post the regulations on the building
Okay.
in like one of those kiosk things so that they stay out of the elements and people can read them. And we're not going to be draconian about it and take things down and throw them away immediately. We're going to try to, work it in and, because it's sensitive,
Yeah, then,
I'm gonna throw the book at everybody.
and give people a chance to comply. But especially the two decorations only is going to probably catch a lot of people by surprise because now some of them have, a dozen little trinkets out there. And, when it's the shepherd staff is one, then they could have one other thing in front of the marker.
And the code is on our website, correct? So they could always look up our changes.
Have there been problems with
yeah.
little trinkets?
The number of
They get hit
things
by a
on
lawnmower
a
or
stone, that's a problem? Yes? Because why, they fly off or they get moved into the grass?
The
and-
equipment creates wind and it's difficult to maintain and
Yeah.
keep them intact, and they become projectiles.
Gotcha, okay.
I drove through there today and a lot of the shepherd staff have wreaths or swags or ornaments, holiday ornaments. They're kind of pretty. But if they don't use them in the summer, it's bare.
So I think the biggest change is with the cremains, though. That's something totally different than
Family plan.
family plan, right? So,
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion points? If not, please call the question.
Mr. Loco?
yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Tuha?
Yes.
Mr. Groff?
Yes.
And I'd like to thank staff for their work on this. Quite a lot of time and effort to go through all these changes and Ben helping with the changes. Appreciate it. And
Legis-
they do a great job down there. That cemetery, I think, always, like for Memorial Day, the holidays, looks excellent.
They were blowing leaves today.
Legislation 11B, would anyone like this ordinance read in its entirety? Hearing none.
An ordinance adopting a moratorium on accepting applications for issuing zoning certificates for any building, structure, use, or change of use that would enable the cultivation, processing, distribution, or sale of adult use cannabis, or marijuana for a period not to exceed 6 months in order to allow the city to review applicable state and local laws and to plan for regulations relating to such uses and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to read this by title only for the second and third time?
So move.
Second?
Moved and seconded, discussion, call the question.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Mees?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Mrs. Chuha?
Yes.
Mr. Graw?
Yes.
Mr. Loco?
Yes. Motion carries. Number and read it, please.
Ordinance number 3259, an ordinance adopting a moratorium on accepting applications for issuing zoning certificates for any building, structure, use, or change of use that would enable the cultivation, processing, distribution, or sale of adult use cannabis or marijuana for a period not to exceed 6 months in order to allow the city to review applicable state and local laws and to plan for regulations relating to such uses and declaring an emergency. Ordinance number 3259, an ordinance adopting a moratorium on accepting applications for issuing zoning certificates for any building, structure, use, or change of use that would enable the cultivation, processing, distribution, or sale of adult use cannabis or marijuana for a period not to exceed 6 months in order to allow the city to review applicable state and local laws and to plan for regulations relating to such uses and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion for the adoption of ordinance number 3259?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as council is likely aware, at the November 2023 general election, the voters of the state of Ohio passed an initiative petition to enact Chapter 3780 of the Ohio Revised Code. Generally, that new chapter, we refer to it as Issue 2 when it was on the ballot. It, among other things, authorizes the recreational purchase and sale of adult use cannabis, and marijuana. There are limitations within the provisions of the state code. I guess the intent of this legislation is to put a pause on the commercial sale or commercial activities related to that use in the city until the state of Ohio is a little more precise as to precisely how adult use cannabis, and marijuana can be used. To be clear, we are not outlawing or taking any steps that would prohibit what the voters have approved, which is the use of adult use marijuana, and cannabis. So what this is just doing, it's telling Steve that if someone wants to engage in the commercial activity for the next 6 months of selling any of those products, we are not going to process those applications. The purpose of that is so that we can, one, figure out what the General Assembly is going to do, because as you might or might not have heard, there might be some changes coming down the pipe. So to that extent, we're not going to take any action while that's pending. And similarly, we need to take a look at our own code and make some decisions with collaboration with the Planning Commission to determine if there are additional regulations from a zoning perspective that we want to do to prohibit or limit, restrict, or otherwise regulate adult use cannabis, and marijuana in the city.
Question.
Yes.
What's the difference between adult use and regular cannabis?
I don't know.
They're
all defined in Chapter 3780. The code is long, and all three are identified. So, on an abundance of caution, rather than learn them, I just said we're not going to do any of them.
No, that's fine. At first, I thought it was a redundancy, but I see that they must have different legal, as you say, legal definitions.
I suspect they definitely have different legal definitions, but the nuance of those distinctions I cannot advise you of here.
And if by some miracle the State House actually got things together in less than 6 months, would we change it? We potentially could change this?
So I think realistically, what we would be doing is, as soon as we get guidance from the state, or no guidance, we have to start the process, and we've already begun the process of looking at our different options. Pretty much every municipality in the state of Ohio is doing that right now. And depending on what the General Assembly does, if they do collaboratively do something, which, well, I know, we will react accordingly. So we could do something within 6 months, but if we don't like the lay of the land after 6 months, provided we're, diligent, we can either extend the moratorium or we can exercise the rights that exist under the existing Chapter 3780.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would it make sense to extend it now?
I would not, no. If only because, look, a moratorium is a moratorium. At a certain point, you reach a time frame where it becomes something other than that. And at the risk of turning something that's a temporary pause into a permanent stop, I think it's important to put a time frame for us to get our act together and decide how we want to regulate. It wouldn't be fair to the businesses or the people if they never knew what we were going to do. So 6 months is a good enough time for us to do our homework and report back.
So outside of waiting back for any decisions from the state level, what else should we be considering?
Well, there are zoning prohibitions if we want to enact them. And so you can regulate and prohibit it under the current law. And there are also provisions with, there's a whole bunch of other, the 3780 is creating and I don't want to use the exact term, but they're creating a new state entity who's responsible for creating guidelines and regulations for the entities that are going to be distributing, cultivating, and selling and licensing all of these products. And so some of that infrastructure exists already in the medical marijuana space, but it's a different universe that I don't pretend to know, and I don't think that the state knows, frankly, how it's all going to play out. And so all those types of considerations will go into what we want to do. We might want to look at doing different regulations for cultivators versus direct sale. It just depends on what that looks like and what those processes are going to look like at the moment. We just don't know.
Understood. Are there any other questions for Ben on this issue? Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Call the question, please.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Mrs. Chuha? Yes. Mr. Grau?
Yes.
Mr. Lauko?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes. Moving on to 11C, would anyone like this ordinance read in its entirety? Hearing none.
An ordinance amending appropriations in the City of Chardon Treasury for 2023 and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to read this by title only for the second and third time?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Call the question?
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Mrs. Chuha? Yes. Mr. Grau?
Yes.
Mr. Lauko?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Motion carries. Number and read it, please.
Ordinance number 3260, an ordinance amending appropriations in the City of Chardon Treasury for 2023 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance number 3260, ordinance amending appropriations in the City of Chardon Treasury for 2023 and declaring an emergency.
Got out of order here, Amy. What was the number on that?
3260.
Is there a motion for the adoption of ordinance number 3260?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion? Mark?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. You have before you an amended appropriations ordinance for your review and consideration. These increases are mainly due to 3 different employees requesting vacation payout. 1 employee is in 3 different funds, and the other $1,000 is due to additional overtime hours needed in lands and buildings.
Are there any questions for Mark?
Don't you, during the budget process, do you budget any monies for vacation payout?
Yes.
So this was in excess of what you anticipated, is what you're saying?
Correct. Some are predictable, some are not always predictable.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mark? Call the question.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Shuhon? Yes. Mr. Grau?
Yes.
Mr. Loco?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes. Moving on to 11D, would anyone like this resolution read in its entirety? Hearing none?
A resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
Is there a motion to read this by title only for the second and third time?
Second.
Move and seconded, discussion, call the question.
Mrs. Chuha?
Yes.
Mr. Grau?
Yes.
Mr. Loco?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Motion carries. Number and read it, please.
Resolution number 24-23, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. Resolution number 24-23, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
Is there a motion for the adoption of resolution number 2423?
So moved. Second.
Seconded, discussion. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. To summarize this resolution, this is just showing the half-mil decrease that council approved at last November special meeting related to the fire levy. So it went from 2 mil to 1.5 mil.
Any other questions for Mark? Call the question.
Mr. Grau?
Yes.
Mr. Loco?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Mrs. Chuha?
Yes.
Are we on to E? 11E. Would anyone like this ordinance read in its entirety? Hearing none?
An ordinance to make temporary appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Chardon, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to read this by title only for the second and third time?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Motion carries. Sorry, discussion, call the question.
Mr. Loco?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Mrs. Chuha?
Yes.
Mr. Grau?
Yes, motion carries. Number and read it, please.
Ordinance number 3261, an ordinance to make temporary appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Chardon, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency. Ordinance number 3261, an ordinance to make temporary appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Chardon, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024, and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion for the adoption of ordinance number 3261?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. You have before you an ordinance to allocate temporary appropriations for 2024. It is intended to cover personnel and certain operating costs for the first quarter of 2024, other routine and known operating costs for the entire year, and the projects approved by City Council in the 2024 through 2028 Capital Improvement Plan. There were some additions since the approval of the plan. The Center Street, at the time we approved the plan, we weren't certain which year it would go in. It's going to go in 2024, so that's why we're adding it, and some other minor increases. And then at the time we did the capital plan, the $2 million for the courthouse was left in 2024, but we're going to encumber, we've since encumbered $1 million in 2023, so that's been removed from the temporary and the 2024 plan.
Mark, in this, what is the switch stack? What is that? Or can someone tell me what that is? Switch stack, 17,000 to replace switch stack for the court? Court, on Court Street? This is which stack?
No, it would be for the municipal court.
Yes.
I don't know what the stack is, honestly. It would be something that their IT, because they use ADP for their IT,
Okay.
that they've asked for it to be in the budget.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mark? Call the question.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Mrs. Chuha?
Yes.
Mr. Grau?
Yes.
Mr. Lelko?
Yes. On to legislation 11F. Would anyone like this resolution read in its entirety? Hearing none?
A resolution requesting the county auditor to make tax advances during the year 2024.
Is there a motion to read this by title only for the second and third time? So moved.
Second?
Moving to second to discussion. Call the question.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Mrs. Chuha?
Yes.
Mr. Grau?
Yes.
Mr. Lelko?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Motion carries. Number and read it, please.
Resolution number 25-23, a resolution requesting the county auditor to make tax advances during the year 2024. Resolution number 25-23, a resolution requesting the county auditor to make tax advances during the year 2024.
Is there a motion for the adoption of resolution number 2523? So moved.
Second?
The second discussion. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. This resolution is brought to City Council each year, and it allows us to get advance payments on the tax payments as opposed to waiting to later in the year to get one payment. So we're requesting approval to get 4 advance payments of the taxes for 2024.
Done this before?
Yes.
Any further questions for Mark? Call the question.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Mrs. Chuha?
Yes.
Mr. Grau?
Yes.
Mr. Lelko?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Legislation 11G. Would anyone like this resolution read in its entirety? Hearing none?
A resolution awarding the Hidden Glen Water Main Loop Project, project number 6-159, OPWC project number CG4AA, CG5AA, to the lowest and best bidder, and authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Grade Line Incorporated for performance of the project consistent with its bid submission and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to read this by title only for the second and third time?
So moved. Second.
Moving to second discussion. Call the question.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Mrs. Chuha?
Yes.
Mr. Grau?
Yes.
Mr. Lelko?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Motion carries. Number and read it, please.
Resolution number 26-23, a resolution awarding the Hidden Glen Water Main Loop Project, project number 6-159, OPWC project number CG4AA, CG5AA, to the lowest and best bidder, and authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Grade Line Incorporated for performance of the project consistent with its bid submission and declaring an emergency. Resolution number 26-23. A resolution awarding the Hidden Glen Water Main Loop Project, project number 6-159, OPWC project number CG4AA, CG5AA, to the lowest and best bidder, and authorizing and directing the city manager to enter into a contract with Grade Line Incorporated for performance of the project consistent with its bid submission and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion for the adoption of resolution number 2623?
So moved.
Second?
Give me a second. Discussion? Doug?
Thank you. Doug. I have a question for you when you're done.
Okay. As Randy mentioned in his manager's report, we received 7 bids for the project. Wide range in numbers for the bids. Grade Line Incorporated was low. We're recommending award to them. They are a well-established contractor. They've done work for us before, and they do very good work, and they're very good to work with.
So 30 days to complete.
30 days to complete caught my attention as well, so I called
think
Grade
so.
Line and They assured me they can get it done in 30 days.
Well, it is off the road,
It is.
and if you really hit it, you might be able to do it.
And they usually do. When they do something, they hit it hard.
And let's say they went to 40 days. Are we really going to penalize them?
No.
We'll exercise whatever rights we have.
That's the appropriate answer.
It's easy.
Ben's ears perked up on that one. Any other questions or comments for Doug? Call the question.
Mrs. Chuha? Mr. Graw?
Yes.
Mr. Loko?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Very good. Moving on to agenda item number 12, review of expenditures. Dan?
Yes, Councilman Blackley and I have reviewed the expenditures and everything is in order.
Good to hear. Moving on to agenda item number 13, executive session. We do have need of executive session for the following reasons. Consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. To consider the purchase of public property for public purpose or the sale of property at competitive bidding, and conferences with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are the subject of pending or imminent court action. Into executive session, I would like to invite Amy Day, Clerk of Council, Randy Sharp, City Manager, Steve Yaney, Community Development Administrator, Ben Chernacki, Law Director, Mark Isofano, Finance Director. That's it. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded, discussion, call the question?
Mr. Graw?
Yes.
Mr. Loko?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Molesky?
Yes.
Mr. Blackley?
Yes.
Mrs. Chuha?
All right, the time is 8:44, we are in executive session.